Hi, I am Simar
And I am Oshi
and we together welcome you to the first episode of Two Girls, One Mic, a brand new podcast series sponsored by My Good School. Before we begin with the podcast, we would sincerely like to thank Mr. Sandeep Dutt, who gave us this wonderful opportunity to try something new. For the first episode, we have decided to share our views on a rising issue. That is the mental well-being of children nowadays. Living in the 21st century, we are all now witnessing a very fast-moving world. A world where nothing lasts forever and everything is replaceable, and to stay on track can be difficult at times.
I agree. I believe that during our teenage years, one thing or rather one feeling we all go through is the one of not fitting in. You know, the fear of being left out? And just to add fuel to this burning fire, the pressure of constantly being better in academics and co-curricular piles up. Not to mention always being compared to Sharma Ji's kids, or the same old question being asked again and again: what are your plans for the future?
So true. I mean, how is a child supposed to think about the future when she is barely able to survive in the present?
Exactly. Phrases like "you only live once," "you have only one life," "live it," and "all you have is now" become our mantras.
And that is when they get introduced to all kinds of bad stuff. Alcohol, drugs, and whatnot. It's good. Try it. You won't get stressed. It's a stress reliever. Trust me, a little bit won't harm you. Believe me, this little bit is what does the harm every single time. We believe peer pressure has become a growing concern in today's generation. The day-to-day reducing self-control in youngsters is often what takes them to a trip to heaven.
You know, Simar, I strongly believe that lack of knowledge is like a crossroad with no signal. And once learned, it is very hard to unlearn. Many youngsters start drinking to become what they think is cool, only to realize later in life that they've become addicted, which in turn takes them to the road of cancer and mental instability. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. Although I think the family environment and communication play a considerable amount of role in a child's future. Imagine the life of a child born in a very respectable family. She will automatically learn good virtues and how to present himself or herself in public.
True, but then if a child who has always been taught to rob is introduced to some good company, he or she will eventually learn what's right or wrong.
Here's the thing, Oshi. Living in a world with about 8 billion people, you can't guarantee on behalf of everyone that they'll teach their children good virtues only, or their child will make a good friend. Exceptions are always there.
But we can guarantee for ourselves, can't we? What if we become the good influence in someone's life? Their temporary conscience.
Touché. Another way that our beloved My Good School has found is by introducing a well-being program to all its interns.
My Guide Inside, or MGI, is a well-being program conducted by Ms Christa Campsall. The program focuses on helping children, or rather individuals, find their inner self and be friends with it. Originally, this was conducted offline in Canada and the USA, but is now available online. The course has very interesting assignments, which personally I found quite relatable. Now I would like to invite Ms Christa Campsall to share more about MGI.
Oh, thanks, Oshi. So nice to see you again. I think over the 8 weeks that I met with you and your peers, we really grew fond of each other and got to know each other quite well. So it's really nice to connect with you again. Now, the My Guide Inside curriculum is really a project of goodwill and based on love of children and young people. I work with a couple of other co-authors. One of them is in the United States. The other one is also in Canada. And we wrote these stories because we know that there's some principles, basic principles, that really help people with what you were just saying in your introduction, that really help children and youth find that security within themselves so that they're grounded. We call it grounded. And when you're grounded, then you have the opportunity to feel the happiness within, and be able to face all the challenges you were just saying about being happy now, and also, being able to make good, wise choices so that you're not acting from insecurity. And like you were saying, innocently, you start having one little drink, and before you know it, now it's a problem, it's an addiction. If we teach the children these basic principles, it really helps with feeling secure. And same with me. Life is a journey, and learning is a lifelong journey. And Oshi, I think that's why on our Friday sessions, when we would discuss these principles, it was like a level playing field, so to speak. We're all teachers and we're all learners. I learned so much from you, Oshi, for example. Maybe you could say just a little bit about how you relate the three principles and separate realities to physics, for example. Are you to do that?
Sure, ma'am. So in physics, we have learned about inertia, and in simple words, it is an object in motion will stay in motion, and an object at rest will remain at rest until and unless an external force is applied on it. Right now, all our lives are in motion, but there will be times where some past experience or some bad incidents will try and stop us. They're the external force. But all you need to overcome that is some good company who will be right beside you whenever you need them. And in case the external force stops you, they'll just give you a little push, and there you are, back in motion.
Beautiful. Isn't that just wonderful? It's that simple. You help yourself, or someone who you care about gives you a little nudge, and then you notice. That's all we really have to do. I'll just back up a little bit. There's the three principles equation. Mind plus consciousness plus thought equals reality, and the reality is what we see in the moment. And consciousness is noticing. If we can notice that our thinking is really spinning and it's getting us out of control and we feel insecure, we can let that thinking, just let it go. And in its place comes the wonderful feeling of security, contentment, happiness, whatever we choose to call it. It's interesting to note that it's about the thought. Mind is, of course, intelligence, universal intelligence, and wisdom, which we call my guide inside. Consciousness is noticing what's going on in the moment. And then thought is really what we're offering to the global community and to young people. This is interesting. It's fascinating because it's not what you think, it's the fact that you think. And once you really see that, power of thought is incredible. Like Yash Raj was saying in one of our sessions, when you see this, it's like all of a sudden you're driving the car rather than your thoughts being out of control and steering you off course and hitting the bumps and hitting the ditch, so to speak. It's a state of well-being. This is part of the World Health Organization definition of mental health. It's a state of well-being, and a state meaning it's what you feel in the moment. We can't have well-being in the future or in the past because we live in the present. And so this is very simple, but at the same time, very powerful. What do you girls think about the important aspects of well-being as a foundation for living your life in the 21st century?
Mental well-being is a very important aspect in one's life, which is often neglected nowadays, and not many people will agree with me, but I like to believe our happiness depends on our thoughts, and our thoughts are like seeds. Whatever we focus on flourishes. So in a nutshell, we ourselves choose our happiness.
Beautiful. Simar, what do you think? Do you want to add something to that?
Mom, I think happiness is greatly affected by the things we find beauty in. And there's a very beautiful phrase that says beauty lies in the eyes of the viewer or the person who basically finds something beautiful. And if we find beauty in little things, I think that can greatly affect our happiness instead of chasing after something huge or something that makes you think it is very impactful and it turns out to be not just what you expected. I think we can really find happiness if we find beauty in small and little things and the trivial things that really matter in the world.
Beautiful. That I so agree. Obviously, I'm old enough to be your grandma's, but it's the same is true for me at my age. And talking about the little moments, I know Oshi had a birthday when we were doing our sessions, and Oshi, our granddaughter, is turning 16 next week. And I wrote a little note in Telegram, but we're hosting a birthday party for her. I'm so excited. We even have guests from India, from how do you say it, Hyderabad? What is it, Hyderabad? So I'm so excited. Yes, Hyderabad. And but my point is, for the card, I got just a card from the store, but then I typed out 16 little things that she said from a little girl to now. And when she reads those little things, it'll make her smile. It's I just remember those beautiful moments, like you're saying, and they give us great joy through the years. And of course, when you're little, you say really cute things, and your parents and grandparents will remember. But that's just an example of it's those beautiful moments that really what life is all about. And it's true, we love to get, like, we just got a new car, and that's very exciting, and it's wonderful to drive this new car and learn about all the little different things. But in a week or so, the car is not new. We're used to it. It's normal. The happiness really comes from within, and like you're saying, Simar, from moments of really enjoying beauty, the little moments that we share with people we love or out in nature. That's fantastic. When you were talking about it early on about kids maybe innocently having a drink or something like that. Oshi, I wonder if you remember we talked in one chapter about the faces of insecurity. Yeah, and then people innocently, this is, I think, a key word for all of us here, whatever your age. People do things innocently. They're really just trying to feel okay or trying to feel better. And if their thoughts are spinning and upset or insecure, they just want something to feel better, and something like alcohol can numb those feelings. So you think, oh, okay, I took care of the problem, but you actually haven't. You create another problem. So for us to understand and feel compassion for people if they happen to, like Oshi was saying, like we're a plant and we're growing, and if we give it too much fertilizer, it starts feeling a little sick, or you don't give it enough water. But if we see that people are innocently doing things to try to feel better, then our compassion and understanding really helps them truly feel okay. What do you girls think about that? Seeing innocence in what someone is doing can help them actually feel better and healthy. Any thoughts on that?
Recently, I was reading a book by Holly Jackson, and it is a series of books. I was in the last one, which is also the third one. In the first two books, we read that the protagonist was a person who wanted justice to be served at all times. But by the end of the series, we read that she had started taking drugs. This was not because she thought they were cool, but because she had gone through so much, she needed some peace at times. The drugs helped her give her the temporary peace she needed. And she wasn't sharing her problems with anyone because she thought she would only cause stress and trouble to her loved ones. That is the biggest misconception I think she ever had, because we're living in a busy world where everyone is chasing one thing or another. Many a times we think that all we are causing is inconvenience to others, but that isn't true. Because in order to make this world a better place, we have to listen to each other, we have to help each other, we have to learn from each other, we have to grow together, we have to develop together. And according to me, we're all like a fabric of cloth, tied together. And all that matters is that we learn to coexist, which is only possible when we take a step together and not one by one or by making others fall.
Beautiful. Absolutely. We're helping each other, and we get a beautiful feeling from that. And the fact is, obviously, I'm a teacher, and I've worked with, literally thousands of kids and teenagers, and I also teach teachers as well. You can only build people up. Isn't that interesting? Like if you tell a child, you wouldn't tell a child, don't run. What you say is walk. The floor is slippery. Walk. You tell people the goal, not what they shouldn't do. The brain can't handle negative directions. It has no idea. If you tell a child, don't be like this, don't be like that, the child goes, well, what am I supposed to be? Instead, if we build people up and know, of course you keep everyone safe. If you're a teacher and in charge of a group of children, you keep them safe. But really, where you want to put the loving energy is noticing the beautiful things that are true about the child or the friend or the relative, whoever you're with, and build people up that way. People feel very, very loved when someone that they trust comments on something beautiful that they see in them. Do you find that to be true as well? That when people build you up and say something true about you, that you get a good feeling? Do you find that?
I couldn't agree more with both of your statements, especially when you said I can only build people up. Because my whole life, my father has taught me that I can only guide you, but I can never tell you what to do. So ultimately, it's in your hands, whatever you're doing.
True. That's so true. What a wise father you have. That's wonderful. Simar, what do you think about the expression, you can only build people up?
I think it's a true statement. I think if you have people you really trust around you and really good company around you, it can really help you become more confident and a more self-confident person. And if my friends pass a nice comment, so it really helps me feel good that day. And I think that's a very important thing, because if you're missing out on that, I think you're missing out on a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's those moments of joy. We keep coming around to the same simple things. These moments of joy through life. That's what life is. Obviously, everyone, rich or poor, suffers from loss and separation. That's a natural part of being a human living in the natural world. But we can have these moments of joy, and we can have more of them when we understand. In psychology, there's a new psychology based on the three principles. We say happiness is your default setting. Isn't that beautiful? When your mind settles down, the natural state of the human is to be content, to be full of love, and to be happy. We used to be scared that if we let go of those negative thoughts, it would just be a black hole. It's not. It's actually a feeling of love, and that's where the power is. So I think it's wonderful that young people around, isn't this great? Around the world, we can all talk together, because, girls, I'm telling you, I talk to people from Brazil and Italy and Denmark and Germany and Canada and the US, India, Africa, and we can all agree on these universal principles that point us to the happiness within. And it's really powerful and joyful to share this. You'll be able to go anywhere in the world and share these principles and help guide people to the happiness and love that lies within. And that, what do you think of that, Oshi, that term? Happiness is a default setting. Does that make sense to you? It's a psychology term.
Recently, we have started having life skill classes in our school, and whenever the teacher walks in, the first question is, how are you feeling today? And when she asked me the question, I realized that I was not sad, I was happy, because although there was nothing great that happened to make me very happy, but there was also nothing that made me very sad and gloomy. So I realized that I was satisfied. So therefore I believe that happiness is a default setting in everyone's life.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. Actually, you mentioned life skills, and we're really hoping that MGI Online becomes part of life skills class in your schools. I think it would be just wonderful. And I see it as a nice foundation that we can stand on. And like you and Simar were saying earlier, it's a fast world. It's the 21st century is a fast world. But when we feel grounded, we can look at what's in front of us and make good choices and feel happy just for being alive. We don't have to have a very special reason to feel happy and content. Go ahead.
I think if NGI comes to our school, it would really help, because when you're a student, you know what your peers are going through and in what ways they need help.
Good. I have, you were just saying, Oshi, about you know that you can help your peers in a very good way because you understand what they're going through. So if we have time, may I say a little story?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. When I was teaching my guidance side here in Canada, and the kids got school credit for it, and what we stumbled upon was having the kids that were taking the course, I gave them opportunities to go and work with younger students. And some of them went to younger grades in the high school, and others we found rides for them and they went to the schools with the younger children. But it's so interesting. First of all, the younger teenagers, where they went and they would read an MGI story, just like we did, Oshi. We read the story and then we talk all these about the principles, and the help was received by the younger teenagers. But when the girl who was taking the MGI course came back the next week, and she talked about how, actually we have a video recording, that's why I remember it so clearly. She talked about how it was the best experience ever to go into a situation. Obviously you're reading the story just so you have something to talk about, but she said then she tried it out. She went in, and instead of having an agenda of what to talk about, she just was listening very carefully, just with a quiet mind, and then was able to initiate a discussion that was super relevant and on point. Isn't that wonderful, to be so calm that your intellect and your wisdom work together and give the perfect words for the situation? What do you think of that? So the idea of being a mentor helps not only the mentee, but it helps the mentor themselves. Go ahead.
As students, we often take our teachers for granted, Earlier, I used to think that being a teacher is a pretty easy job, as all you have to do is tell stuff to a bunch of students and they'll understand. But this year, 2 incidents took place and made me realize that although being a teacher is a wonderful job, it is a very stressful one and requires a lot of hard work. So the first one was when we came back from the retreat that took place in April, and soon after our return from Dehradun, we were asked to conduct the activities we did there with the 5th graders of Ganshri. And when the moment I stepped into their class, I realized that right now there were people who were looking up to me, and I couldn't just word, but I had to be better every time I spoke. I had to guide them and I had to help them. I had to set a good example for them as well as for myself. Soon after that, I started taking tuitions for a girl in my society, and now whenever I go there, I have this feeling in my head that I have to set a good example and I have to make this more interesting so that she doesn't lose interest. And overall, both the experiences turned out quite well, and now whenever me and the girl I teach meet someone new, we introduced ourselves as the girl I teach and my favorite teacher. So it was truly a wonderful experience, and I didn't only teach but I also learned many things.
Beautiful. That's a great example that's happening like right now. I love that. Simar, do you want to add anything to that about the role of being a mentor or being a mentee receiving mentorship from someone? Do you have any experience or comments on that?
I haven't had many experiences like Oshi said, but I was a member of the student council. So I think in that there was a lot of learning that was undertaken, and at the same time I got to share my experience with a lot of other youngsters who were looking up to the whole student council, and they wanted to be a part of it, and they were eager. They said to me that we can't wait to be a part of the student council. And I think that really warmed my heart, because I was at the position at which they were looking up to me, and that was very nice to experience. And there was a lot of learning in that as well. I was a mentor and a mentee, so it was a very wonderful and enriching experience for me personally.
Beautiful. That's a tremendous example of in one of the junior MGI books, there's a story about giving is receiving. It's a circle. And, if we're giving wisdom or sharing our wisdom or advice or love or happiness, it goes to that person, but it has to come through us so we receive the benefits ourselves. Beautiful example.
I believe we are all mentees all throughout our lives, but becoming a mentor is a once in a lifetime opportunity, which is definitely not worth missing. So it is wonderful that we experienced becoming a mentor, even if it's for a day, because it has a lot to teach.
Absolutely. I often say we're all teachers and we're all learners, and that's so true. And at my age, like I'll say again, I'm old enough to be your grandma. I'm still learning, and that's the joy. It's a real joy to keep uncovering the mysteries of our beautiful existence, and that's so true. And that's we say it often in schools: be a lifelong learner. Well, that's true. If you want to have freshness and joy in your life, keep learning. And if we think it happens to all of us. We think we know something, and then, actually, someone's just quite happy to bump you off your little pedestal. Better that we feel we're equal and that we're all learning and sharing that joy. I have one more little story I thought of while I was waiting for the new link. May I share another little story? This story is about, it's not a little anecdote, I should say, the importance of understanding these principles when our goal is a very high academic standing. Let's see if you can follow the logic of this. One of my young students in high school, I met her when she was in her final year of high school, and she had very high goals of working in neuroscience and medicine, and of course needed the highest grades possible to qualify for the university that she chose to study at. Now, she got, whoopsie, just a second. She was experiencing a lot of anxiousness and anxious thoughts, so much so that in the early fall when I met her, she would come to my room at lunch. She would be having panic attacks. She was so anxious about thoughts about the future and would she make her program. So that was one thing. Another thing is her teachers came to me and they're like, oh, this is not good. This is serious. This girl started cheating in order to get the high standing because she had so many anxious thoughts about her future. And she was part of the My Guide Inside course. We started it around December and worked right through June. And she used to believe that she had to work on her studies day and night to get her high standing to go into university. And of course, so many anxious thoughts would lead to panic. But she started to learn through the MGI principles that, oh, wait a minute, those thoughts that are anxious thoughts that are spinning me off my track, I can let them go. I don't have to analyze them. I don't have to think about them. I don't have to wonder where they started or where they come from or what other people think of me. I can just let them go. And guess what happens when you let those anxious thoughts go? Your mind is calm. You start to feel the natural happiness that's the default setting. And then guess what? When you're studying, your intuition and your cognitive work together to help you learn what's in front of you. And how did her life turn out? Well, she started to enjoy a little bit of recreation, a little bit of sport. She lived on another island, and so would ride the ferry water taxi to get to school. And on that time, instead of thinking all these anxious thoughts about the future, she was able to just reflect on her day and enjoy a little peaceful water taxi ride home. Do you see how the logic of that? If you have we all have anxious thoughts. But the point is, are they dragging you down? Are they spiraling you down? Or are you taking charge of your own life and letting those thoughts go and calming your mind so that you can learn in the best way possible? I'll just finish this little story and then I'll ask you what you think about it. One day, this was now in the spring, and it was like exam time happening, and she was late for class, and ran in, and oh, I'm so sorry I'm late. But what happened was I was in the washroom, and the girl in the cubicle beside me was having a panic attack about an exam. So I just stopped to help her and help her calm down so that she could go into the exam and do her best. Isn't that a wonderful thing? To go from panic attacks yourself to, in a few months later, learning about the principles, helping someone else find their calm and their wisdom so that they could do the best on their exams. So I'm curious what either or both of you think of that true story.
I think it's beautiful how those feelings of anxiety transitioned into feelings of happiness and feeling peaceful. I think teenagers really a lot of times they wonder if they're gonna make it or not, and that is what makes them anxious, and that is what draws them to taking actions such as cheating and other stuff of that sort, using unfair means. But I think when there is someone to listen to and someone they can share their problems with, they can always give them a nice pep talk and warm their hearts, give them a warm hug and make them calmer. And I think that is the best help in the world. I think the bravest thing to do in today's world is to ask for help, and that is amazing. That if someone reaches out to you, it feels wonderful.
Absolutely. I so agree with you about asking for help. We can't do it alone. You know, I wrote these books, but it's a whole team behind me. They're invisible right now, but it's a whole team of us that got this project going. And also for jobs in now and into the future, what's going to make you stand out is that your ability to work with others and bring out the best in others. So I really appreciate what you said there. It's so very true. Thank you. Oshi, do you have any comments about that?
There is a very famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi that is, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And that is what we were discussing earlier too. Just like in the wonderful story, after the girl overcame her panic attacks, she took the responsibility to help another person. And to create the difference, all we have to do is always help each other and keep on passing the good deed a person once did to us. Although we are having life skill classes in our school nowadays, there are still kids who aren't able to open up because of the fear of being judged. And this is also one reason I believe that we should introduce MGI to our daily curriculum. Because when we will write, reflect and discuss together, we'll realize that there is no one who is judging us and we are all equals here. This will help us create individuals who aren't afraid to present their views and are in a stable mental position to help people who need it and create an improved, developed world.
Absolutely. There's a funny thing about, well, it's kind of funny, but you know, we think about ourselves and then we think about what others think about us and then we think about what they'll think about. Anyway, you can overthink things and it becomes quite funny. So what you're saying is so true, that we can just really be grounded. I'll use that word again, be grounded in our well-being. And then of course sometimes we take advice from a friend or something like that, but we're grounded. We're not going to get off course. This is what the young woman who started with the panic attacks and ended up discovering her own well-being, she said, what she thinks my guide inside is that she's like, I always had a good goal and a good path in mind, and what I learned from MGI is how to not get steered off my own course, which reminds me again of what Yashraj was saying about driving your own car in the metaphor, as a metaphor for life. So I think this is wonderful. And then also, just very soon you learn this, talking about these principles, it creates a very safe environment where we're looking at what's right and what's good and how to be successful. Not only with, being successful with being okay with ourselves, with our relationships, with our friends and our family, if we have a small part-time job or we're part of the student council, and also our academics. It helps. Oh, I know what I was going to say. You know, Oshi, that's so interesting you talk about the Gandhi saying, because guess what I had as a poster in my classroom? That exact saying with a beautiful picture, and then there was the Gandhi quote. It's so very true. We change ourselves and how we see the world changes. Our reality is a reflection of our thought, mind, and consciousness. So I think it's beautiful. One more thing I'll say, once you see the principles and how it works, you start to see the truth all around you, and it's really quite fun. to start seeing the truth and how it helps us navigate our world in a healthy way.
Thank you, ma'am, for being here and sharing your amazing thoughts. We really appreciate your presence. I have already completed my course and I hope you will too after listening to a wonderful conversation. Because MGI has a lot to offer, not only through the assignments but from the weekly scheduled meetings as well. Personally, at first I thought 8 weeks was a long time, but soon after the first meeting I understood it just wasn't enough. It was the time I realized how fast time flies by. According to me, even if I spend my whole life doing the course, it wouldn't be enough. Because if there is one thing that MGI has taught me, it is that we are our own teachers, our own role models, our own students, our own everything that we aspire to be. We have the whole universe wrapped around our arms, and all we have to do is believe in ourselves. And that is exactly what MGI has helped me to do. With this, we come to the end of today's podcast. We sincerely hope you enjoyed it, and we would like to thank everyone who has helped us achieve the success of today's episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, same date, same time next month.